the legacy bands like Obituary or Napalm Death. Like, what's this? Holy moly. I know that sounds real bad, but metal's aged, and so then you could argue, oh, but there's all this, you know, deathcore and metalcore and stuff. All the young kids were still into like all the nasty music. But then there's the argument, is that actually metal? It was Michael Jackson where I was like, whoa, you know, what's going on here? And somebody would be like, bro, check this out, Slayer, whoa, you know. And that's why I was like, oh, they really a metal band, you know? You know, certainly heavy metal's not just background music, you know. It's not designed to just plastic shows, I'd like to think, you know, so. 48 hours. They're all kind of like called up because I never really want to get them attached to anything or awkwardly trip on them, or which admittedly I do all the time. I probably need a haircut. Making Valhalla, like, whoa, what is this overwhelming thing going on? I'm 40 now, what have I done, you know?
Guy who jumped here.
Yeah. No, they're awesome. In terms of what we contribute to society, so yeah, without the community, you're nothing really. So I suppose the best contribution, changing the world. Everybody comes in here, or whatever music you like, it's fine, you know, it's cool.
It's your thing.
It's just your thing, absolutely, you know, so who's to judge? Well, hopefully the landlords don't turn up and make this an apartment, but I can imagine that day will come. Stop trashing the toilets, you know, please people. Nah, not at all. He wanted a drink. He was still playing as well. This is not in between songs. This is like in the middle of a chorus. He's still thumping it out. Gets the drink. I don't know where he put it, to be honest. Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that smell? It smells like blue cheese. And the rest of them are like, yeah, give me all your evil, you know. It's always the black metal guys, So, you know, to be honest, they were notorious for that. So it wasn't unexpected, but it's perhaps unexpected if you're just a random person walking off the street. That's Valhalla as you do, you know.
Hey, before we jump in, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the show, please hit that follow or subscribe button. It really helps the channel get noticed so more people who are into the same stuff can find us. Plus, it will make me happy and inspired to bring in more guests who are great at what they do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome. Hope this won't be long, but again, I'm glad that you gave me some of your time.
A pleasure. Yeah, no worries.
Talk
Thanks
about
for coming in.
metal
Yeah, that's
stuff,
right.
or probably something else.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
Yeah. So maybe as a background, who's Ben?
I'm a Ben, yes, so Kira, I've been here almost 11, 12 years now at Valhalla. Born and bred in Wellington. I used to go to Valve back in the day, 90, 98, 99. Probably was underage, but you know, seems like it's a common theme here. Not now though. So yeah, I always thought, this is such a cool vibe, kind of my environment. Obviously did things in my life because I only really took this place over when I was 30. So did another job, got into science, but always had the music background, always went to lots of shows. Anytime I'd travel, I'd go to shows and kind of go to places like Valhalla. And then before you know it, the opportunity arose and jumped in sort of head first. And then it goes quick, you know, 10, 11 years, it's sort of just a big blur, really. So
I heard
I was clean shaven back then. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I would like to see that. How long have you been growing your...
So this would probably be about 9 to 10 years, but the dreads admittedly were 2000. So
2000.
To 2001, I should say, 2001. So that's, what, 23 years or something?
Oh.
There's a birthday, you know.
Oh, okay. So how long is that, the one at...
Oh, the dreads are 23 years old. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, have you...
I have no idea. I don't know. They go low. They're all kind of like called up because I never really want to get them attached to anything or awkwardly trip on them, or which admittedly I do all the time. But yeah, I probably need a haircut. One day.
One day.
One
Not
day.
anytime
I
soon.
said that 23 years, you know, one day.
Right. And then how do they do that? Stitching?
So the actual beard is just natural, and it's probably because I've just gone like that a few too many times, and it's just self-dreaded. But the actual dreadlocks on the hair, initially it was essentially, sounds very white man, but they perm because I have curly, fluffy hair, they kind of perm it, and then it glues it together, essentially chemically bonding it together. And then from that, it kind of just naturally forms. It just continues that dread. And of course, what they need to do is they need to make sure that it's not forming a big dread, big clump, because things can just mat together. And essentially a hairdresser will then, the people I use now at least, just use little crochet hooks and just part your hair and keep that hair onto that dread and that hair onto that dread. But more or less they're kind of, I've probably done that once in 10 years, or maybe twice, I tell a lie, twice. So they just kind of naturally come out of my head now, like that. So.
You mentioned chemical. You're a scientist researcher.
Yeah, I was a synthetic chemist for probably about 6 or 7 years.
Do you miss it?
I do a little bit, so I did it kind of, no, I'd say part-time, but basically I had 2 jobs for a year. When I started this place, I still had my day job. But then I thought, obviously, you know, it's pretty late nights running a music venue and doing all the other things during the day, that it wasn't really fair on either of those jobs. So basically I had to make the call, which one am I going to do? But I suppose Valhalla was more like a baby, and I didn't really want to sort of throw the baby away after a year. So I kind of went with that. So I don't know if I necessarily missed the chemistry side of things, but certainly it's a lot quieter. There's a lot less crazy people running around, but arguably it has its own stresses, and some of those kind of practices, good practices, I can sort of transfer doing this stuff. Where there's always something in the back of your mind, even when you go home from a kind of environment, a research environment, which it was, you're still thinking about things, you're trying to work things out. So you never stop really working. And it's much the same as here, where there's something always to do or improve or to make better. So that's kind of good. It wasn't like a big jolt making Valhalla, like, whoa, what is this overwhelming thing going on? It was just like, oh yeah, back to this.
Sounds to me like you're mixing chemicals at home just to move your mind away
almost,
from...
yeah. At least on, that's right, on pieces of paper and instead of in your head and whatnot. And I suppose because there was also the academic side of it, you get the peer reviews and the peer pressure, and so that's kind of a good sort of training ground in a way, right, to be prepared for the odd situation perhaps at a bar, or the odd situation maybe for artists who may be a bit grumpy or whatever, how to sort of handle, even though you think it's just, you're in a white lab coat and you're not talking to anybody, there's still obviously, interpersonal skills and relationships you have to form. So, as everybody's experienced probably in any job really. So,
right. So how did you transition from being a scientist researcher, is it? Scientist researcher, to just maybe focusing more on arts, because they're two super extreme. Like, science is more of you need to have a process in place, right? But art is like...
that's right. So I suppose hopefully I've transferred some of those processes in the sense of maybe the bookings and maybe hopefully how things are supposed to be run, in terms of any old business. But when I was the scientist, when I was the chemist, I say it wasn't that loud, but I would still have the stereo on in the lab. There's always, every lab has a stereo. It doesn't matter if it's a nasty pharmaceutical company or a small researching team. They're still got to have that blaring background music. And of course, you just rotate it between each member of the laboratory or the work area. And I suppose, I always look forward to when it was my turn. And then of course, when I'm not in the lab, I'd be going to shows and kind of doing this. So I kind of was like at that, that stage of life where you're like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to do that initial job that you're going to do, or that initial kind of employment or career? And knowing, people probably my age now in their 40s, they were like, well, I'm 40 now, what have I done, And so I kind of could feel that, and I was like, oh, this is the crossroad point. Do I want to kind of continue with that, or would this kind of line of work maybe make me more happy? And then all the energy you can pour into it's kind of, for me at least, it felt more constructive doing, a music venue and obviously it's to bring, people some happiness because they're listening to the music that they love and they're in an environment hopefully that they enjoy and stuff. So, the benefits probably for me, I was like,
You're weighing it. It's like your midlife crisis.
Yeah, in a way, because I was in England for 3 years doing the sciencey stuff, but still, out on the booze, doing bands. But when I came back, I was like, well, actually, maybe this is a good chance to deviate or whatever. And also, Wellington's a really small place. There's not really that much sort of chemistry science stuff to do. I've pretty much been employed by everybody that I've, so it's either go back to your old job or do something different, So.
So in terms of what you're doing with Valhalla, you're not just managing the whole bar, but also you're bringing in some
bringing in acts. Yeah, we've got a good team here as well. So lots of people, help. It's a good team thing on the venue and the bar and stuff. But we do bring in the odd band. We've got one coming up called Thou and Full of Hell tour. It's coming up this weekend. Yeah, touring I suppose started because you want to keep your venue busy and your bar busy. And the way to keep that busy would be to have cool overseas bands or bands which perhaps people won't be able to see again. So they're going to turn up to those shows. So that's how that kind of started.
So how do you select the bands that gonna need to come in? Obviously you have your criteria. Like you just don't pick. Maybe you can play. Maybe
70 to 80% of them would reach out. Hey, we're thinking of coming to New Zealand and Australia. Would you guys be interested? Or can you make an offer? Can you say how much money we'll make if we did come to New Zealand, potentially, talking theoretically. And I'd say the ones that are like, hey, we're coming, let's make this happen. Obviously, they want to do it. So that's good. The ones that are like, hey, can we make more money off Aussie New Zealand than say doing a Far East, like a Korea, Japan tour? We'll just do the Americas again, So then it's kind of like, and then maybe 20% I'll be like, hey, you guys, if you ever come to New Zealand or Australia, let's make it happen, If you're keen, maybe in a few years' time, and usually those bands will be picked because they're cool. They probably have a good vibe. They're not necessarily all nasty heavy, but they might be just something that resonates with maybe us or staff or there's lots of kids in Wellington or New Zealand that go, I've got to see this band. And then so that would be probably, 1 out of 5 would be us going, hey, if you ever think about New Zealand or Australia,
Remember,
Yeah, so it's a little bit different when you ask somebody than if somebody goes asking you. So if you ask them, then you have to kind of make sure everything's perfect. But if they're already turning up, then you just smooth it all out and make it work, So yeah, but that only started maybe 2015-ish, and that's probably about 80% of my time really is doing that.
And I've seen that you're also doing like Valhalla tour. So is that the same kind of?
So that's the same thing. So and that doesn't necessarily mean that the shows are at Valhalla. This weekend we've got one at Meow. Obviously we've got Christchurch and Auckland, so they kind of float around. Whether or not I should have used the Valhalla name for touring, well, stuff it, I did. So, but it does mean that the shows are just everywhere, any old where. And it's kind of cool because then there'll be a fun show hopefully here, and there'll be something else in Wellington which I'll be doing.
So you're working with other fellow.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because then you can voyeur over their venue and go, how you guys do things, or what's going on here or whatever. And it's friendly, it's positive, and before even doing the touring, I think most venue owners and people are pretty friendly and positive because we're all in the same kind of industry and all that.
So it's a good vibe, kind of, in terms of you working with other venue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not like a competition. It's
not really
healthy competition maybe.
Yeah, and because Valhalla itself's a smaller size, we're not really competing to get those overseas international shows day in day out. Was so small that most bands would want to play hopefully at a bigger venue. So for us to put those bigger shows at other venues, everybody's appreciative and loving it and keen for it. But that's always been, and also the venues are just literally around the corner, so we all kind of more or less catch up every so often. Something might happen, good things, bad things, whatever. We're all kind of more or less on the same stream of people coming in and out.
So you've been in the industry for about 10
about that.
10 years.
10, 11, 12 years. Yeah.
I'm just curious about the landscape of heavy metal? I mean, if we're going to focus just on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
heavy metal,
sure.
what has changed?
Definitely changed a lot, in my opinion, and that's, I think, partly generational. So, you know, there's different trends in different bands, and I suppose when I turned up, all the young kids were still into like all the nasty music, but that's who they were. They were kind of nasty music and nasty people, but awesome and great fun and shit. And I think, you know, as they're growing older, they're like probably 30 somethings now. They're still into it, but the people that were 30 when I turned up are now 40. They've got houses, they've got kids. And maybe those bands, those legacy bands, someone is still fucking going, you know, their lifers. But maybe those shows aren't happening as much. I don't know why. But certainly, I know that sounds real bad, but metal's aged. And so then you could argue, oh, but there's all this, you know, deathcore and metalcore and stuff. But then there's the argument, is that true metal? You know what I mean? So the younger kids are into slightly different variants, which is cool and fair. Because you look at the 80s and you probably got like Black Sabbath type, you know, metalers, and then you got the death metal kids turning up. And I'm sure they were just like, what's this stuff? You know, so it's the same kind of, that kind of shift on what people listen to.
I was talking to Steve Francis about the change in the landscape, and I was giving him an example, like when Metallica started, they were like thrash, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and then they released the Black Album. Suddenly, it's a different shift. It's a huge shift in their
Totally, and their sound,
many hated,
maybe fan base as well, to a degree, you know.
Yeah, many hated them. Like, that's not
Yeah.
true.
And it is kind of hard because, you know, a human being's got to change and evolve, and maybe they get into different things. They still obviously love what they did, hopefully, in their past or whatever. But, you know, you've got to have a chance to evolve as a musician, really. But I think certainly the local scene's evolved. So hardcore's cool. Hardcore's always cool. Hardcore's in. Everybody's playing in hardcore bands or screamo bands. 8 to 10 years ago, yes, that was happening. But now it seems like, you know, if you're a kid coming out of school, you're probably going to be doing that kind of thing. But in saying that, in 2 years' time, it'll just kind of trend to maybe everybody's all of a sudden crust punks.
Or probably just
Stuff clean living and all that, you know.
probably just heavy metal. Not
Yeah. But I think the good thing about Valhalla is most people that turn up here, they love music. Like, music's their identity, their passion, everything about them that makes them kind of tick is kind of music, or, you know, they really appreciate music. It's big in their life. So it's just not background music, and certainly heavy metal's not just background music. You know, it's not designed to just, you know, listen to and chill out to. You know, you're really in it. Maybe you are chilling out to it, but you're feeling something. You're feeling something.
Yeah.
So
it's a good example that I was talking as well. Like, if you feel like you're having goosebumps when you're listening to it, then probably that's
connected with you.
Connected,
you know?
right.
And even if it's not a heavy metal show at Valhalla, I like to think that the majority of music, all the music that we put on, it's still in the same thing. Maybe even if it's, you know, a softer, say, indie type band, hopefully it's good and people are still like speaking to them. Yeah, so there's not too many plastic shows, I'd like to think, you know. So
for all those bands who played here, who do you think, I mean, who rose above, kind of like, who became like kind of well-known around New Zealand?
So in terms of, you know, build up a good reputation and stuff.
Yeah, good reputation, that's probably the term.
Yeah, certainly, and maybe not necessarily, you know, my time going upwards, but bands like Meth Drinker, Heresiarch, Blood of the Moon, who kind of, you know, played local shows, but obviously top of their game. You know, some of those bands went overseas, did lots of tours, Rogernomics, and kind of, you know, still the DIY, still the kind of the gritty shows, but are really respected around the world. Bands will come in to New Zealand, overseas bands, be like, hey, any chance Meth Drinker could, you know, reform and play for us? We love Meth Drinker. You know, you talk to people in Russia or whatever, and they'll say certain bands like Meth Drinker or Heresiarch or whatnot. And so they're all local people. So that they're sort of, yeah, they certainly, you know, had that cool kind of vibe. In terms of bands lately, certainly Bullet Belt's been around for a good 15 years, and they've done, you know, they're doing a Japan trip pretty soon.
I heard, yeah.
You know, there's not that many bands that are doing that. That did the European tour last year, you know, so they've definitely put themselves in a good position to really, you know, show the world and also see the world, you know. So they've done really well. Yeah, Auckland scene sort of changes, mixes and matches. All the pop music seems, everybody migrates there to live to be honest. But with all the kind of genres we're into, you can live anywhere and kind of do your thing, so, you know.
When it comes to your passion about bringing in bands in here, where do you get that? What keeps you like waking up in the morning and
totally
excited?
Well, so some of it is like, wow, I've really connected with that music, or that music's something that I've, you know, been into when I was younger. So, you know, the legacy bands like Obituary or Napalm Death, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool that they're coming here, that I'll probably work with them and whatnot. But then there's sort of, I suppose, new experiences. There's like bands like Drab Majesty, or sort of, you know, synthy type bands that, you know, the show, watching YouTube, you think, wow, that's pretty unique and that would be cool as to have happen here. So I almost look at it as much as like, with the business hat on, as almost being like a punter, because I'll be like, wow, that would be an awesome experience kind of for everybody, not necessarily like, oh, we're going to sell 800 tickets or, you know, whatever. I think we've got some shows next year that hopefully do sell good tickets, but you know that they'll be fun shows. You know, it won't be some dusty old kind of going through the motions band. So that's probably the main criteria. Is this going to be fun for everybody? And then obviously the band understands that New Zealand's not the biggest place and maybe you won't get the biggest tickets. But they're like, hey, we want to come here. It's going to be fun. We're going to see some stuff. So that's the criteria. But in terms of what gets me up in the morning, typically somebody ringing me up, because I always forget to put my phone on no notifications. And then somebody's like ringing up at 9 a.m. asking for some bloody gear or whatever. So that's what gets me up in the morning.
Or maybe Lloyd like messaging you on Facebook.
Oh, totally. Oh. So that's and that's cool. But yeah, you're pretty much, you've got to be working all the time in a way.
How do you describe the locals? Have you been outside of Wellington in terms of promoting bands?
Yeah. Well, certainly the touring bands give me that opportunity too. So I think. What's the rest of the question?
How do you see, what's the difference between Wellington and the rest of the country? Obviously, there will be differences in terms of like, I don't know, crowd vibe and stuff like that, and how in terms of the culture.
Yeah, well, it's I suppose everybody kind of knows everybody in Wellington. It is still quite a small town. You know, even people that maybe listens to slightly different forms of music, they're still going to see their mates and probably go to slightly different shows than what the music that they love, because they'll be like, oh, you know, that's my bro, or that's my friend, so I'll go support them. I see that in Dunedin a bit. I think Dunedin has that really good tight community, and certainly Christchurch has got, it might be getting older now, but they had a really good tight almost party scene where, you know, everybody's having a big house party and everybody knows that they're in a band and that band's playing. Maybe they just played and it's an after party. Maybe they're going to play next week and they'll all sort of turn up and support, which is kind of nice. Auckland's a big city and it certainly feels, you know, there's lots of different groups of people and you might turn up at a venue and you'll see, hey, but it's still lots of different people. So maybe less, so we have a car park at Valhalla where everybody just turns up and yarns to. Most of the time everybody's sort of like in their groups and circles, but they kind of know everybody, partly because there's nowhere else to go to a degree, you know, and it's the shows that they want to go to. But maybe in Auckland that car park would be, the people might be standing a little bit, you know, against the fence on that side and a little bit. But I think Dunedin feels more like Wellington in the sense that, oh, there's a show on, let's all go to it. And it might not be exactly what they like, but it's something to hang out and do something. So the music culture in Wellington's more like you can almost put on a show and somebody will turn up, in the sense that it's kind of ingrained to go out and do live music or look at some performance art or do some kind of do stuff. But I feel it's so expensive to get into Auckland City, maybe find a park, or just the fact that you're living 40 minutes mish away. I think that stops Auckland a wee bit. Christchurch perhaps doesn't have the venues that have been year in and year out, and the legacy and the culture and the like, oh, it's been here for the last 20 years. Dunedin's got that. It's just a bit smaller. And, there's probably some transient students in there, but the people that live there are it feels more like Wellington to a degree.
Do you see some regulars coming here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that might be because they've played in bands, since like the early 90s, and then they're lifers, which is cool. So, yeah, absolutely.
I was here when Yon Mungan Deer.
Yeah.
The guy who jumped here.
Yeah. No, they're awesome. Yeah, that's right. And they've certainly been around since I can, remember.
Plus the showmanship, like
yeah. Jack likes it. Jack gets into it,
Yeah.
Just the
vibe.
It's good, man. It's good. I think Wellington bands are probably a little bit less on that stuff, but it's fun, and you remember it, don't you? It helps get your name out there and getting them perhaps. So I think they played Cuba Duper once, and obviously half the crowd's their friends and people that know them, but the other half are just like, "What's this?
Yes.
Holy moly!" So for me, that was actually really cool and nice to see and shit. Exposing other people to scary stuff. So.
Right. What's the biggest challenge that you've experienced over the last 10 years in terms of, like, I don't know, maybe getting bands or putting a good show?
I suppose trying to keep, not necessarily identity, but trying to keep our, oh God, sounds terrible, but like our business model of having an open door for anybody, and to do shows because the people are good people with good music. They might necessarily not have the biggest platform and the biggest following, because you feel like if they don't maybe have somewhere to play or perform to do their thing, where else are they going to go? But more like, we want to keep that community and that grassroots kind of vibe going. So that's probably, I suppose, in some ways the main aim. But then you've got to balance it by making sure things can continue, and it's a sustainable kind of model in a way.
So anyone can just decide to play here?
Well, admittedly, lots of people want to play, so then it's like trying to jigsaw them into like, oh, there's the date available, and you need maybe a lineup where there is the odd person that will want to go see some other bands on that bill,
Do they need to show you some videos of that?
Yeah. So if it's a weekend, it's kind of like more ruthless, where it's like, where it's more ruthless, where it's like, you could have your show, but for us, we might have to put another show after you. So you still get that opportunity, but we've still got to do things in terms of a business to make sure that it kind of works. And then those weekends are usually 6 months out, sometimes 9 months out, for like, I'm just looking for a Friday or a Saturday, and then it's like, okay, well, sort of April, May next year is kind of when it's opening up, And it's also the regulars who have put on good shows and good acts, or lots of different acts. They've already booked up their shows because this is their community kind of branch, as well as other venues, that's their local spot where they feel confident, they know it's a good time, and so so it's some venues might have 60% internationals, maybe with the same promoters as that kind of continuous, but we probably have, as a venue, probably 80% of just local acts doing the same thing but releasing an album in 6 months, or doing an EP video release, or a tour or whatever. So we're kind of lucky in that regard. Being small gives you that flexibility rather than needing a headliner to do 400 people,
How much does can we accommodate?
About 150 is
150.
Well, that's the legal limit. So so 150, yeah. So that's and you're sort of, how does that work? But as long as we can all get out safely and get to the toilet and and all that kind of stuff. So but bands that like Napalm Death or Carcass, Black Dahlia, Murder, Dillinger Escape Plan, they turn up and go, oh, it's going to be fun, because they're used to a stage barrier and a 1.5 2 meter gap.
Okay.
And even that's actually not that bad here, but then there's actually probably a big stage up there, so they can't even see anybody. So for them in here, they're just like, we're going to see people's faces, because their face will be right in your fretboard right there, show me what you got. So most acts really enjoy that. different environment. Maybe they've come from Australia where it's a 2,000 kind of 800 cap venue. So they're like, oh yeah, this is us how we're doing it 10 years ago or whatever. So
do they expect too much? Like when you are a big band like Napalm Death or Carcass or those kind level, do they expect so much about the crowds in here?
I think the bands that perhaps don't play at the Valhallas or the small, medium New Zealand venues, the 400 caps, that do the, say, the power stations, they expect, to a degree, a mirror of what they're getting in Europe. And it's about lowering the expectation that they'll be getting, you know, maybe 800 people. But it's also an age thing where if they've been around the world a bit, they're just kind of like, oh, this is cool. I'm grateful that I've had a career and people know me in little old New Zealand. But I think it's the bands that are maybe coming up, they expect that. Whoa. So there's a band, you know, they're playing in new cities, places they haven't played before at 2,000 cap venues. Well, we don't really have 2,000 cap venues in Wellington or Auckland on terms of the scale that they want. And so they'll turn up and they'll still have a good time. I don't know them as people, and hopefully they appreciate that 600 people have turned up. I know their management's probably going to be like, where's the 2,000 people? But hey, really, if the band themselves are happy and like, oh, I'd love to come back, then it's obviously a good experience for them. So yeah, it's like, I always say, it's like playing in Iceland or Alaska. New Zealand, it's kind of like the corner of the world. Nobody lives here. It's cold.
We've touched this a while ago. So when you got introduced with heavy metal, is it the first music that you've got introduced to it? You
know, and like intermediate a little bit, but certainly, you know, year, I don't know. It was third form when I was growing up. It shows my age, but year 9, I think it is. Everybody does music, and obviously you kind of gravitate to the people that are kind of on your vibe. And Wellington High School's, it still is kind of a music, alternative culture, dropout school, you know. So everybody would always bond over music. In fact, there were different levels. Like level 3 was kind of essentially the bogan level, because you'd have a stereo and you could put whatever music you wanted at interval and then lunchtime. So that was the level 3. Everybody's putting on, you know, Pantera or, you know, Sepultura or whatever. So that's probably, you know, and somebody would be like, bro, check this out, Slayer. Whoa, you know.
Is it the first music that you were introduced to, or you were
Certainly Dad listened to, you know, the Led Zeppelins.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, that kind of 60s, 70s, psychedelic, you know, borderline heavy metal kind of stuff. So that was cool.
Heavy.
That was cool. Yeah. Oh, no, totally, you know. Yeah, and it's the same Prince, the same feeling, the same vibe, you know, just without blast beats, you know.
Like having a debate. Is Led Zeppelin heavy metal now? Yeah. They were heavy back then, so they were heavy
metal. Totally. And they're still cool. They're awesome, you know. They got, you know, great vibe. And well, I think it was Michael Jackson where I was like, whoa, you know, what's going on here? But I think the first album I bought was Sepultura, or first cassette tape or whatever. But I did think Michael Jackson was cool. Maybe I still do. I don't know. But certainly growing up, you know, you know pop music because it's rammed down your throat. But obviously your parents, you know, or whoever's older than you kind of has their own vinyl collection, you know, mosey through.
Right, vinyl, I remember that with my dad.
Yeah.
So what's one song that you can listen to for 48 hours? Just one song.
Oh, 48 hours. Wow. To be honest, probably Bad Brains. There's a lot of Bad Brains music, which, you know, it's just so much energy and it's pretty raw. Usually the recordings are pretty average, but it's got a good spirit that. But yeah, I couldn't even name a song really there, but to be honest, Bad Brains has always got good energy, good spirit. To like, you know, the slower, the moody stuff, maybe the Obituary, Slavery Rod or something. I suppose now it's also, when you see a band live, you kind of go, oh, that was underwhelming. Or that was like, that's exactly the feeling that I got from that album previously when I listened to it. So, yeah, so it's a mixture of things. And I suppose everybody thinks I just listen to heavy metal, but I might listen to like Johnny Cash or whatever. Not that I've listened to Johnny Cash lately, but you know.
Have you heard his single, like
it's just some kind of
song?
No, it's just some kind of like rework.
It was produced by Rick Rubin.
Oh, okay.
So what impact do you see heavy metal in the community around Wellington or maybe New Zealand in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, certainly, I suppose as a venue thing, certainly without people being able to go to a venue and being themselves and listen to they are kind of missing a fair bit of who they are. And that's probably why I started Valhalla in a way, because I was like, is this space still going to continue to be that environment? In terms of what we contribute to society, the thing is with metalers, they all come from every aspect of life. There's legal, like lawyers that are metalers. There's accountants, and hopefully my new accountant's, he's a frontman for a death metal band, But I think there's an honesty, I suppose, in metal, and if you're a metaler, that's a part of your personality, and hopefully that's something that you contribute and still express when you're outside of a metal environment, where if something's a bit bullshit, it's a bit bullshit. So I think you always have that camaraderie, maybe traveling as well. If you see that band shirt, how's it going? There's always that that bonding. So I suppose it's a bit like a bit of a club in a way. But in terms of a non-metaler and a metaler, then I think, at least with me, most people kind of, laugh and get it. New Zealand's a very unpretentious kind of environment. So I think it's mostly pretty positive. Everybody knows a bogan. Pretty much everybody in New Zealand is a bit bogan, really. So, But in terms of changing the world, they certainly defend their space and make sure that, their people looked after COVID. Obviously hard times for everybody, but everybody contributed to keep Valhalla going. And that was really, nice and sincere to see. So yeah, without the community, you're nothing really. So I suppose the best contribution the metal community has is actually just with each other and supporting, other bands or buying people's merch, Yeah, loyal. And most metalers are metalers for life. They might get a haircut, they might, but they still like have the albums in the background, so.
Yeah. We might get bald sometime, but...
Yeah, that's right. You're still windmilling without the hair, So.
Right. Do you believe in catharsis?
Catharsis meaning...
Cleansing.
Cleansing, yeah, totally. Music does change people's moods, but it also perhaps takes you to another place which you can then reflect back and think about something else, maybe in a different light because you're under a different energy or whatnot. So definitely everybody that isn't a metaler thinks everybody comes in here, all agree, but that's kind of the opposite to that, in the sense that, yeah, when something amazing is happening on stage, it might look like that, but it's actually mostly a feeling, a positive feeling. And then afterwards, obviously, that's made that person happy. And hey, maybe that's a release. Maybe that's actually just enjoying life. So I don't think, there's some music that you'll hear for the first time and you go, wow, that's actually changed, obviously your mood, but it might change your perspective, or like, whoa, holy moly, that's connected. Yeah, so it's powerful, and that's kind of why we do this stuff. There's other genres, like there's a drum and bass or dubstep. I always call it drum and bass, but it's dubstep. They do shows mental health awareness because they know all the people, much like metal, they turn up here, have a good time, obviously community, catch up, and hear things that really resonate with them and are like, I'm having a good time. And so they do continuous shows essentially for that, and then obviously financially it's for mental health in an organisation. So, but that's music, if it doesn't move you, it doesn't make you change yourself, then it's probably not that good music really, is it?
Or probably it's not for you.
It's not for you, it's a bit more elevated music. So.
Any unexpected moments, like within the change, like maybe just a riot somewhere?
Oh, like unexpected moments. Every time a staff member has a birthday here, something happens. But it's not necessarily fair to say that's because it's a birthday. But more fun things, more positive things were, so there was I think it was Dragon Force bass player can't remember his name, French guy. He wanted a drink. He was like, I need a drink. And I think it was a bourbon and Coke kind of guy. And then obviously it's a packed house. It's going to be a battle. So, he was just like, I need a drink. And then he just kind of didn't jump, but he got up on here and then he tried to do the Jesus walk because it was pretty packed. So he started to walk on people and they were holding him. He was probably walking on their heads as well. And then, he kind of did the old crowd surf because it got a little bit thinner and he surfed his way to the bar. I had the drink ready. He was still playing as well. This is not in between songs. This is like in the middle of a chorus. He's still thumping it out. Gets the drink. I don't know where he put it, to be honest. I think he ducked it under his elbow. And then he just was like, right, guys, back. And then he still had his drink and he was still surfed back on there, took a swig, kept playing. So I thought that was pretty smooth. That was like 20 seconds. He got a drink, got back on stage, kept playing. So that was fun. I think many other people have attempted to do something like that and just fall flat on their face. So.
It's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a skill. He pulled it off pretty well. But nothing too crazy has happened in the set. Oh, we did have one guy set up fireworks in here 2 weeks ago and essentially it blew up.
Really? Is this?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that was going to happen. He obviously, made a mistake setting it up. Thankfully, nobody was on stage. There's a bit of dust still around and we're trying to wipe off but in terms of, no cars have crashed through the front wall and wiped out a drummer. So yeah, it's pretty chill. There's obviously the black metal shows where they might turn up with the old thing. Oh, what's that? Like, oh, what's that smell? It smells like blue cheese. And then you realise it's because there's rats that are 15 years old on their tops, hooked into
like
their
real rats,
and that they've frozen. And then they'll pull it out at every show and put it on their jackets. So they literally smell like death. And of course the rats kind of got this weird congealed kind of, the body is there and the skin's all like, and they stink. The bacteria, there's that smell where I shouldn't be here. Your body has that natural reaction of, I'm going to get sick. This is going to poison and kill me. But it creates a bit of an atmosphere. It creates an environment. And of course, when they do play, half the crowd's out the back because it's disgusting. And the rest of them are like, yeah, give me all your evil, So I knew that was going to happen. Another one was an altar. It's always the black metal guys.
Like the skull and
the skull, except it had a turd in it. Yeah. So, to be honest, they were notorious for that. So it wasn't unexpected. But it's perhaps unexpected if you're just a random person walking off the street. Oh, there's a skull, probably a human skull, with a human feces in it. That's Valhalla, as you do, Yeah. That only happened once in Italy. So there's a few odd things, but part of the parcel, goes with the music.
So what do you think is the future of heavy metal locally?
Locally, I think it'll just be the same thing where it's the grassroots bands enjoying themselves, playing good shows, meeting new people. There might be more. Hopefully, we'll do more sort of festivals where it's out of town bands come in, and then obviously in those other cities, same thing happens. Those are usually the best nights because you catch up with people you haven't seen for 6 months. You get to see some band from out of town's new work. And then vice versa, the local bands obviously want to show it's how it's done. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully more zine or distro stuff. There's some good people doing that. It kind of ebbs and flows in terms of, what band's going to try to take over the world, because most metal bands don't want to take over the world. They just want to have fun and play the music that they like and hang out with their mates kind of thing. So if that changes, in sense of there's going to be a 500 cap metal venue, then I don't know if that's really kind of the vibe. Yeah. So I suppose in some ways, keeping things true and honest is as good as not changing it.
Are you seeing more young kids?
Yeah. All the young kids, are into hardcore and all that kind of stuff. And then I think when they probably get to the, after getting whacked in the head a few times, which is cool, but that's good. When we growing up, there was Thistle Hall. Those were all there was no Zeal. And then I think for whatever reason, Zeal did their thing, which was awesome. And there was a whole bunch of Zeal kids. And now it's gone back thanks to Start Today and crews doing all age shows. Zeal's the thing again. So once a month, all age kids or all age people, anybody can go down and see a show. And so that'll start, another thing. And that's certainly something Wellington's always needed. The council's been told that many times. And so it's awesome that somebody's like, let's keep this going kind of thing. So, yeah, but there's always going to be a bogan shed with a crusty Marshall cab and, some half-broken amp somewhere in Wellington playing. So, so hyperpop has not won the battle. Kids will always associate with what they want, so with what they feel, so.
What advice can you say to those who wants to be a promoter like you?
Oh, don't bother. Nah. In terms of being a promoter, yeah, absolutely. We need more people promoting good shows and, trying to spread the word out there. I'm kind of in this mixed opinion in the sense that people that are into this stuff probably know it's here because we're probably going to seek it out. Even when I was sort of growing up, you kind of actively want it because you like it, you enjoy it. So it's making a night or making those things happen. But if there's even just a hint of something happening, then really people will support it in the metal community. It's tight-knit, still word of mouth in terms of promotion and doing shows and whatnot. As long as you don't have a cancelled band on the bill, people will probably turn up. So, but yeah, I suppose people just got to be themselves and stuff. Sometimes the more structure you have behind all of those things, it can get lame as well. Like we never do the whole Valhalla club or, join the club, get 10, all that.
10% off.
Yeah, and it would be kind of cool and it'd be nice to give back to people that are regulars. But at the same time, it's kind of nice just to say everybody's the same, including, hopefully myself, everybody's just like on the same kind of level, playing field or whatever. Yeah, otherwise it gets a bit, I don't know, not gatekeepy, but yeah, you just got to keep things honest and pure. And I think Wellington definitely calls out people that are kind of maybe doing things for the wrong reasons but in some ways, if that other person's doing something that makes them happy, who's to judge? You know what I mean? Who's to judge? So yeah. But yeah, just be yourself, really.
I'm just curious. Do you play an instrument?
Oh, really crap guitarist. Banjo, pretty poor. And when I started owning it, I was like, I've got a drum kit. I can finally learn the drums. But I played maybe 3 to 4 times since. So it was supposed to be Sunday. I'd come in here and fuck around, but but no. And in some ways, when I go home, I'm just like, hey, no more music for a bit, so.
I just want to sleep.
yeah, almost does, so. Yeah, so, but yeah, I haven't picked up the guitar in probably 9 years, to be honest. Yeah, in fact, I sold it. So I sold it, and the person that performs here, she bought it, so it's kind of the family bought it, so.
We don't have instruments here
We do have a crusty bass in the cupboard, and there's always somebody who's forgotten their bloody guitar. There's one up there. So there's always something fun around. But in terms of, well, you could argue that's the beauty of drums, because we've always got house cymbals and we've also got snare, and we can literally play drums. And that's to save somebody coming in with all their gear. So we try to provide at least something, apart from a guitar, that you can literally just turn up and you can play. Guitar heads, guitar cabs, bass stuff. Yeah, which is cool. I think if we owned more guitars, the wear and tear, broken strings, but too much. Yeah. It's
Any dreams or dream project you're working on right now?
Ooh, dream projects. Ooh, it's a good question.
Scientific
Well,
project.
yeah. Well, hopefully the landlords don't turn up and make this an apartment, but I can imagine that day will come. So I suppose the dream or the thought process is try to work out how to evolve after that. Maybe the site won't be here forever.
Kind of business continuity, right?
Who knows? But the good thing is Auckland had no venues for a while. They had Whammy and Galatos, but they didn't have like multiple venues doing multiple, and things still evolved, things still happened, people still played music somehow. So I suppose we'll just have to work out what we want to do with ourselves at that point. I don't know when that is, but in terms of Big Pipe Dreams, probably it would be cool to do some outdoor festivals or shows outside of structured venues. But it does require a bit of work, having a generator in a forest or that kind of stuff. And that's probably something that's doable, but it's also going to take me away from doing the stuff that I got to do now. So that would be a nice dream, There's a few spots around in Wellington, the punks do it really well, take shelter, where they're playing gun emplacements, but something like that would be cool. But I don't know if I've got the time really to sort that out. Right. It's hard enough to find the hi-hat clutch, let alone, doing something like that. But yeah, but certainly for me, I suppose as a person with the promoter side of things, to do less shows, but make those shows that are going probably bigger and better, or cooler, or something that I'm like, yeah, I actually like this band. This band's like important. So probably for me, that's probably more the reality and the dream. Yeah.
What is heavy metal?
Oh, that's a big question. So I suppose heavy metal is going to be different for everybody, but heavy metal's definitely, a feeling you get, or you could say it's an attitude, you could say it's a feeling, but it's also the connection with other people and a connection to the music. So heavy metal, when there's a metaler, a lifer, I suppose it's everything. It's who they are. It's their identity. It's what gets them up in the morning. So I suppose it's actually more of a spirit or philosophy, really. Yeah, I'd like to probably think it's more of a philosophy. Some people say it's a religion, maybe. Who knows? Yeah. So that's for me. That's probably more what it is, as much as diminished fifth riff or a blast beat. Yeah. Because some good bands without blast beats, would you believe? Yeah. Yeah. So philosophy, I think, a vibe. Yeah. And that's why it's like, oh, they really a metal band,
Any final message you can give to the metal community?
Stop trashing the toilets, please, people. Nah, not at all. Nah. I don't know, really. I suppose just, live the dream. I always say living the dream, which is kind of like a bit of a parody on, obviously, dreamt about music venue owning or running or trying to get, associated with that stuff, and then the reality of it. But the reality is really what you make of things. Obviously grateful at all the help and all the different people that work here and all the different people that put on shows, and it's a community kind of thing, really. So so long live the community. We're only as strong as everybody helping out and putting mahi and effort into things. So yeah, I suppose that's that's the message. This is a place you can be yourself, kind of thing. So
no judgment.
No judgment. No, that's right. No judgment. No judgment over hyperpop or whatever music you like. It's fine. It's cool.
It's your thing.
It's your thing. Absolutely. So.
Where can we find you?
Well, Wayne's down here, but physically, I'm usually trying to sleep. But you can find me on Instagram. The usual places. I'm trying to spam you with MailChimps and every kind of which way. So, but yeah, find me at 154 Vivian Street. That's probably the best way to put it. So, well, we've got Batushka, which is a Polish black metal band.
When is that?
That's December the 12th. Only in Auckland. Only in Auckland. But yeah, there's certainly shows where most of the black, or hopefully, some people don't like them, which is fair. We'll go to those shows. So we'll see all the black metalers at Batushka in Auckland, But yeah, might see you at Valhalla. I don't know. See you in the car park, maybe.
Drinking coffee.
Yeah, that's right. No, I don't really drink. No. No. Well, it's partly because I'm like, oh, that cost me $7.50 or, whatever, They go, oh, and maybe also I've been around too many drunk people. I don't know. Or I'm like, I'm kind of sleepy and tired and I have a drink. I'm just like, going home, guys.
Yeah.
Going home.
Do you have family?
Yes, I got family. Some are here. So yeah. Girlfriend and mum.
Okay.
Yeah. So small family in that regard, But it's still big in, other ways. So yeah. But no kids. We have any kids? No kids. No kids. No kids.
That's nice. All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate
No worries,
it.
man.
And,
Good on you, bro.
yeah. Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Good
to meet
times. Thanks, mate.
No worries. One, a little bit more, please. Okay. Cool.
That's straight there. And the son was like, yeah, look at all this stuff. What's this there? So yeah, it's yeah. And then you could tell the dad was like, yeah, you're gonna be a bogan when you grow up, So the mum was just like, no. But if you can't find them or hunt them down,